dormitories at community colleges, athletics at community colleges. What role will our community colleges play in the world of workforce? My name is Matt Kirkner, your host for the Tech Ed Podcast. My guest this week and next in this two-part series is Dr. Jay Allen, president of Itawamba Community College in the state of Mississippi. Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Dr. Allen, thank you so much for joining us on the Tech Ed Podcast.
Great to be here. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Now, you have served in leadership roles at a number of community colleges all over the United States. What is one thing that you have found to be true about community college, no matter where you go in the United States?
Great question, because community colleges are probably one of the richest resources for every state. They are great at serving their local community's needs. And that's one of the unique pieces. They're community colleges. They serve that local community. They're tremendously flexible. We often can turn on a dime, sometimes not as fast as I may want us to, but we are very nimble. We're often, though, not well funded. And that's a challenge because you're trying to be all things to all people, but you would always have all the resources you need to do that. But we still fight to make sure that we're making that impact. And then we're the best value in higher education, not only for the student, but for the state. And I believe this to be true across the country. And I guess lastly, I would just add, we produce tremendous graduates that so often stay local. And that's becoming more and more important today as we look at brain drain in states where students or graduates are often leaving that state. And so I think our graduates, especially in the career technical areas, so often stay local to work.
Workforce challenges abound, not just in the state of Mississippi, but across the United States. And it certainly is important that our students stay local. And our community colleges, to your point, Dr. Allen, do a fantastic job of educating our students locally and keeping them in the local community. And I think that's true of community colleges across the United States, certainly with the guests that we've had here on the Tech Ed Podcast from states like Wisconsin and Minnesota, Michigan, Kentucky, and Indiana. I would certainly say that that is true. So we've talked about what is common across the community colleges in the United States. What would you say is unique about the education climate in the state of Mississippi that might be different from what we see in other states?
Well, as you talked about, Matt, my experiences in both Kentucky and Mississippi, but also serving on the American Association of Community Colleges Board of Directors, in many other regional and national settings, I get to see so much of what's happening across the country. And I think one thing that's really unique about Mississippi is that we have 15 community colleges that are independent, autonomous institutions. So we answer to a local board, our board of trustees. We have a coordinating board at the state level. But what that allows us to do is be so responsive to then our local communities. And we know that then that responsiveness to our local communities, the industry partners that we serve, the local leadership allows us then to have a tremendous impact across the state. The other great thing is, even though we're independent institutions, we come together as presidents every month. We discuss, we plan, we use our teams, our leadership teams to build initiatives that we know will impact the state as a whole. Not just a local college, but the state as a whole. And I think that's something that is somewhat unique for Mississippi because we are independent autonomous institutions, but we come together so strong. We bring one message to the state legislature for our needs, and we work together as a team of 15 colleges to bring that message forward and to enforce it and to push that and to educate our legislators so that we can continue to meet the need of Mississippi. You know, Mississippi often is at the wrong end of so many lists and polls and evaluations. But what's unique, though, is at the same time, even though we may not rank very high on most polls in education levels, yet Mississippi community colleges continue to rank as some of the best community colleges, the best community college system in the country. So there's that irony there of being so polarized, but yet here we are really meeting the needs and we're able to do it. And we do it at a great price point for our students. And I think that's one of the other pieces. The average cost tuition wise is $143 per hour. So, of course, in all the community colleges in Mississippi, you're going to get a discounted rate once you reach 12 or more hours, you reach that full-time status. And so they're going to get a discounted rate then, but on average, it's 143 per hour, which is tremendous. And we work really well with our university and K-12 partners because we see it as a kind of a P20 initiative. We know that we're relying upon the K-12 partners that provide us our students. No matter their age, they've been through K-12. And then we're going to also work with our university partners in handing them off a set of Associate of Arts degree students that are ready for the next level. And we want to make sure they're ready for the next level.
And all of that bodes well for the future of the state of Mississippi in so many ways. The future of any state starts with a really solid education. And if you've got a community college system that is ranking at or near the top, that certainly portends well for the future of your students, for the future of your state. It's interesting when we talk with leaders across the United States, and there is a difference between a community college that has a statewide approach where every community college reports up through the same office and is in lockstep, and the ones that are independent in nature and respond in a different way to the local issues and local concerns of their various communities. And it sounds like you've struck the perfect balance in the state of Mississippi between having the benefit of responding really well to your local economies, but also speaking with one voice and being able to collaborate and share best practices with presidents in all 15 community colleges in the state of Mississippi. So that sounds to be working really, really well. And as we say, that speaks well for the future of the state of Mississippi. And I want to talk now in terms of just your own unique economic and workforce development needs in your region at Itawamba Community College. How do you see your role as president of that institution in addressing those unique economic and workforce development needs?
Man, it's an area I spend a lot of my time. I really dive in a tremendous both dedication of time and energy and effort into our efforts as a community college in meeting those economic and workforce development needs for our region and ultimately then for the state of Mississippi. We know that the college plays a significant role in the economic development efforts of our region and the state. We see that playing out again and again. We work with roughly 70 companies a year in workforce training efforts that range from Toyota of Mississippi, large employer with a large footprint, to a smaller locally owned manufacturing shop. And we know that both are vitally important to our region and the state. And we're proud to work with both and everything in between. Furniture manufacturing is very large in our area of the state in Northeast Mississippi. So we work closely with a number of furniture manufacturers. And the needs there will be different, obviously, than a Toyota, but yet at the same time, there's so many parallels. And one thing that I really I'd be remiss if I didn't tie to workforce efforts. It's not just the non-credit workforce training, the short-term training that turns around people ready to either take a new job or to keep the job they have because skills needs are changing or advance at that local company. But it's also our career technical programs, our career education. Without that, we really would not be able to sustain the workforce that our employers are needing. It's those industrial maintenance tech, machinists, operators, all the welding, all of those programs that come through, including our allied health or health science programs. All of those are so vital to our local community. We will see many of those people back at a later date, perhaps in workforce training, non-credit training, but so many of them started and made their impact through our credit programs. Also, I do site visitations as often as I can to make sure that I know what those industries are expecting from us. And so we'll talk probably more about that later on. But we also find ourselves very often as one of the stops when a site selection team are here in our community visiting locally to decide if this is a place for their company or the company they're working with to select as a future site for employment and development of a work site. So we find them visiting our workforce training center and looking at what we do, have done, do now, and will do in the future if they come here and the impact we can make for them. I'm glad that we're integrated into that process, and we take great pride in making sure that we're able to continue to offer that level of impact.
It is interesting as you talk to companies large and small, how important the technical education system in a given region is to their selection of where they want to do business, where they want to locate their manufacturing facilities or other facilities. And that availability of a competent and skilled and willing workforce is so very important in the world of economic development and so very important to both the community college and the community in which it does business. We've talked a lot about things going on in your state as a whole. I now want to drill down a little bit to some of the specific things happening at your institution, Itawamba Community College. So let's talk now about what specifically makes your community college unique. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, and I'll tell you why in particular to your institution, when a lot of folks think of a community college, they may not necessarily think of college athletics. Now, I'm a huge Milwaukee Brewer fan. And I remember back about 2010, we had a pitcher on our team here that was actually a student at Itawamba and got his start at your institution. You really have a robust athletics program that has produced several notable athletes. What does your strong athletics program add to the culture of your institution?
You're right. Mississippi is unique in the fact that there's athletics in community colleges, and not just athletics, but residence halls. And to me, those two pair together. We have 1,000 students that live on our campus. We are completing a new residence hall right across the street here that will be ready fall of 22. And that residence hall will hold another 246 students. And so we'll be sitting, nearly 1,250 students living on campus, part of our environment every day, which is very unique in the community college world. Plus you pair that with 11 athletic programs, varsity athletic programs, football all the way to golf. And so it's a tremendous impact. One of the things that allows us to do is to have a 250 member marching band. So it's not that we just have football, but we've got the marching band, the cheerleading staff out there. There's so many components that go with that. And then it's not just that we have the marching band, but it's those students being involved in so many other performing arts and music programs that allow us to then have that robust, diverse college experience. So in a lot of ways, we look like on this campus, really a small liberal arts college or a small college. A private college is really unique. But then in our Tupelo campuses, which are commuter only, there's where you're going to find not only academics, but you're going to find career technical programs and the workforce training. So there's some unique pieces in Mississippi, and then even within each community college. But I will tell you, with those 11 varsity programs, what we have found is that we're able to enroll students who may not have enrolled in college had it not been for the opportunity to play the sport. And it's the sport of their dream. And it's often a dream to play at the next level and the next level after that. And in, say, a football situation, to be playing on Sundays. And so our goal is to take that individual, no matter how prepared or unprepared they are for the college setting, we take them and we put wraparound services around them, and we challenge them every day, both academically and athletically. And as I also tell my coaches, I also want you to challenge them to be a better person than they were yesterday, and to make them better individuals. But we believe that this has a huge economic impact. So take an individual who's not reading at 8th grade level. We get them, we move them through their educational plan and increase their reading level, even though they may not be as focused on academics as we want them to be because they're focused on athletics, and that's the reason they're there. But if we can take that individual and move them to the next level academically, think about the employee we're providing to a workforce in Mississippi down the road. And so it, to me, has a tremendous educational gain and economic gain for the state of Mississippi. It creates also an environment on campus that allows us to engage our students outside of the norm of a commuter campus environment that so many community colleges across the country may be limited by. We've got that ability to do this with night events, with afternoon events, with games, and so many things that occur that, again, add to that rich culture, that sense of engagement at the college, which we know is so important to student success. So without athletics, could we survive? Yes. Would we be the rich, diverse environment that we are? Probably not. Matt, let me add, you talked about your Brewers fan, right? Is that what you said?
I am indeed.
And so we've had players through the years in many sports, football especially. We've got some still in the NFL right now, both playing as well as in coaching ranks that are graduates of ICC. This past spring and summer, one of our graduates, Houston Harding, went on to Mississippi State University and not only played, but had a significant impact in the College World Series. He pitched in the second to last game, 5 or so innings, huge impact for Mississippi State University. But not only that, he had 3 or so of his teammates or more that were community college graduates. And so, we're continuing to make that impact on those individuals well beyond their time here at ICC. And I think that's the other thing. We help to build better sports and better athletes for the next level, whether that be in this state or other places. So that's exciting as well.
So when we talk about, again, helping people accomplish their dreams, what a great dream for Houston Harding to be able to pitch in a game like that, an opportunity that may not have been afforded to him had it not been for his experience at Itawamba Community College. It's not just for athletes, right? We're trying to help every student accomplish their dream. Now, you've been voted the most affordable community college in the entire state of Mississippi. 80 to 85% of your students receive some form of tuition assistance, whether that's financial aid or a grant or employer reimbursement of some sort, really enabling and creating a pathway for so many different individuals to accomplish the dream of earning a college education, earning an associate degree. Why is it that your institution in particular prioritizes affordability for students so very highly?
This is something I've known for my 25 years in community college education. Finances are one of the largest barriers to college success and access. And so you think about it, there's more access to college education than there's really ever been in the history of the United States, but yet finances are still that largest barrier. And so if we can help to remove that barrier, reduce that barrier, make that something that they can actually climb over, then we know we have a better chance of getting that student to success. We use a full array of scholarships and federal programs to make this work. But I'll tell you one other thing that's really so unique about this part of the state. We're blessed that in our 5-county service region, all 5 counties, they came together, they take local county money, they work with third-party foundations, and they provide that money to our students that are recent high school graduates coming directly to the community college. They provide them last dollar scholarships. So it's a tuition guarantee program. So if I have a recent high school graduate from one of our 5 county schools that is going to come to ICC and they get no other aid at all, we at least know the county will pick up the tuition for that student. So what a partnership that was created some 10 years ago to make this happen is a tremendous testament to the vision of the leaders in those counties and to this college, that we know that education is that path. And so we've got to do things to bring people in. And you also think about it, there they have the opportunity to leave this college, hopefully debt-free, move on then, if that's their path, to move on to the workforce, or in some cases to move on then, many cases, to move on to the university setting with no debt for the first 2 years of college. What a tremendous opportunity. And I think we really propel students then, where transfer scholarships and the like, and our students are sought after. And they're going to have opportunities at the university level to reduce that cost for a tremendous amount in many cases to finish up that 4-year degree.
A tremendous opportunity for sure. And when we think about all the different hurdles that can face an individual trying to earn a college degree, certainly the tuition, the cost of that education is pretty close to, if not at the very highest end of that list. So it really is a tremendous opportunity for these students to have the chance to have that tuition paid for, to not have to lay awake at night worrying about coming up with those last dollars to complete their education. Another hurdle that I want to chat about now is just the access to a physical building, access to campus. We know that transportation can be a significant challenge for individuals who are working on their college degree. In many cases, they may be working in a job at the same time and pursuing a career. So speaking of those types of hurdles, you've really worked hard to knock down the hurdle of access from a physical standpoint to your campuses long before COVID. How has this benefited the students and employers that you serve?
The Mississippi Virtual Community College System. So that's something that existed. I was a very young in my tenure of college life, of working in a college setting. And I can remember going over to meet as the 15 community colleges came together to meet with SACS, our accrediting body, and SACS COC, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, Commission on Colleges, to receive accreditation approval for all 15 community colleges to come together. So we've been doing this for 20 years or more, to come together and say that a student can enroll at their local community college, their home community college, take courses both at that community college, whether it be face-to-face or online, and then take online courses that are offered by one of the other 14 community colleges in the state that may meet their needs, both from that semester, or in some cases, we have programs where we just don't have the expertise of that course. So we don't teach that course. We use a sister institution across the state to teach that course, and we have the expertise in another. And so we teach that course, and their students take our course. But you pay your tuition to your local college. That course is transcribed at the local college. So you have one point of entry and exit, even though you may be taught a course by an instructor from another community college in the state of Mississippi. It's a tremendous program, and it has been a game changer. It's allowed us to reach people that I really believe we would have never reached before. We've even had some scenarios where students enroll at a program at our community college, even though they live 3 hours away, because it's online and their local college doesn't offer that program. And that's fine. That's great. We're glad to be able to do that. And so those are exciting things that can happen. And the fact that we can do this without any extra real cost to our students. So they're not having to drive 3 hours to go to that physical site. They can do this online. Is it for every student? I would argue that it's not for every student. It wasn't for me, even though as I was working on a PhD, I didn't enjoy the one online class I had to take because I got so much out of the physical being there, getting to know those classmates. So what we've had to do is become really creative. It's not just you sit and you read this material or you listen to this lecture online that's been provided, but we challenge those students to develop relationships with their peers in that class and to have discussions and to get feedback from one another. And in some cases, even to work on projects together, again, through remote technology. So obviously, online learning has allowed us to work with incumbent workers in our local area to reach their educational goals while balancing work and life. And I don't know if that work-life balance could have been achieved otherwise. And so we're proud to do that.
It's no longer about how the institution wants to deliver the learning. It's about how the student wants to or needs to receive it, depending upon how they learn, depending on their own personal situation. So credit to you as well for your foresight in that regard, because we really are seeing an evolution in education. And I think it is going to be toward how do we mold the modes of learning around the specific student, and technology gives us the ability to do that as we prepare students for whatever comes next. To your point, maybe it is going on to a 4-year degree, maybe it's going direct to workforce. I want to turn now to your role with the Mississippi Education Achievement Council. You're the chair of that organization, and that organization, for our listeners who are not familiar, is responsible for the statewide education attainment goal set by the Mississippi legislature, actually all the way back in 2010. So tell us, what is the education attainment goal this group is tasked with achieving?
Well, Matt, you did a great job of outlining what the Education Achievement Council is and what it's all about. And they've done some great work through the last 10, 11 years. I've been chairing this council for the last year or so. And we realized that we were kind of missing the boat on the attainment goal because we had set a goal back in 2010 of reaching kind of the national norm. The only problem was that really prevented us from having a hard, specific number that we could use to obtain grants and other assistance from entities such as Lumina and others that were so focused on this. And so we realized we need to make a change. So we came back, and after a task force dove into this, we came up with the idea that what we need was really Mississippi's North Star. This is a challenging goal. It is not easy at all, but we set the goal of by 2030 to reach 55% of post-secondary attainment for the workforce in Mississippi. So there's 2030, 55%. And then thus our name, Ascent to 55%, is the attainment goal as we branded that. But then we know by 2035, we will switch somewhere after 2030, we will switch to 60% by 2035. And so we did it as a two-phase goal because when you're a little behind in setting that number for your state, you've got the benefit of learning from other states and their successes or lack of success and what they've learned through the process. And so we used all of that, put all of that together and decided we would do a two-phased approach. We would set 55% by 2030, 60% by 2035. Let me just add that we know right now Mississippi is sitting around 44%, while the nation is sitting around 51% educational attainment of a post-secondary credential. And we really consider that our credential of value. It doesn't mean that it has to be an associate's degree or higher. It could be a non-credit credential that will lead directly to employment of a sustainable wage. And so we know that that will add to our impact in the state of Mississippi from a workforce standpoint as well.
It strikes me that you've got an incredibly holistic view of the whole world of education as we discuss the various aspects of workforce training, non-credit training within a community college, certainly the pursuit of tech diplomas or associate degrees, and also the importance of third-party credentials, which, as we all know, are becoming more and more prolific in the world of education and in the world of industry. I love the two-phased approach, the ascent to 55%, and then by the year 2030, and then to 60% by the year 2035. Really a nice way to gauge your progress as you work your way along the timeline for this most important Mississippi Education Achievement Council. Now, we've talked a little bit looking back over what progress has been made so far and where you are in terms of the percentages relative to that goal. What do you see the next 5, 10, 15 years looking like as you continue to pursue that important goal for the state of Mississippi?
It seems like a huge challenge, and it really is. And we know that it's going to take every Mississippian to help us move this needle. But the great thing is, as Lumina has provided us with data, the Lumina Foundation, one of the things that we've learned is that the overall rate of educational attainment has increased by 15.1 percentage points since 2008. So even without as strong a focus as we plan to have over the next 5-10 years, what we're talking about here is growth that's been occurring because of the work our educational institutions are already doing. And it takes all levels. We know that K-12, there had tremendous gains in third grade reading levels. That will impact us down the road. We know that that's coming. But then we also have to do our job with the students that are here today and those students that will be coming back. And so projects such as our Complete to Compete, which has been, I believe, a Kellogg-funded grant program where we're able to provide some tuition assistance for students that have not completed their degrees, have completed some college, but not a credential. They can come back, and in many cases, they actually had the coursework they needed. They just never graduated. And so we're helping them do that, or they lack one course, or they may need to get that degree and they can transfer on to the university and then achieve their ultimate goal. And we've had great success with that. So that's just one of the many efforts. But we know that we can't do this just because we want to. So we've broken it down into 7 objectives. And just to run through those very quickly, the first is to increase the number of adults with credentials of value. So that's obvious. We've got to do that. We've got to get adults with credentials of value to stay in Mississippi. So it's really stopping that brain drain. We've got something we've got to work at, and we've got to work on quality of life and many other issues so that people value that life here in Mississippi. We've got to also attract adults with credentials of value or those willing to earn credentials of value to move to Mississippi and to be a part of our economy and our workforce and making an effort to make this state better. We have to increase the number of jobs requiring a credential of value. So it's one thing to start getting more people to earn a credential of value, but if there's not a job tied to the end of that, we've got a problem. And so while there are so many jobs available, we know we've got to have even more that are tied to that credential of value. And then close ethnic and gender gaps. Again, I said we can't do this without every Mississippian moving forward. And so we've got to make sure that as we look at our educational attainment levels at all levels, we're making efforts to close those achievement gaps based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, and anything else we may find, and that will take efforts at all levels, both community colleges, universities, and ultimately K-12. And then the last 2 are to develop ways to show how increasing attainment will benefit Mississippi, not cost us. So it's not that we're going to educate our workforce out of the current job they have, but it's actually educating them and getting them credentials to stay employed in their current workplace as skill level changes and the needs change of that employer, but also that they're ready for advancement within that same company, that same career path. And then create a culture in our communities that values a credential of value or values education. And we know that that is so important because education is the true path to prosperity. And it doesn't require a bachelor's degree necessarily. It doesn't necessarily require an associate's degree, but it's that credential of value at whatever it is for your career path.
So retention, attraction, employment, making sure we're addressing ethnic and gender gaps, understanding that this has to be a net benefit to the state of Mississippi from an economic standpoint and otherwise, and making sure that employers value education of every sort and every kind. I think that last point particularly resonates with me as we look at more and more employers becoming aware of the different types of education and the different types of credentials that someone can walk in their door with. And as the world of work continues to change, and as we continue to move toward a culture in a world of lifelong learning, I think those are really, really important steps. So credit to you and the entire state, Dr. Allen, for the work with the Mississippi Education Achievement Council. I want to thank Dr. Jay Allen, president of Itawamba Community College, for joining me in the first of a 2-part series of the Tech Ed podcast. You don't want to miss next week when we talk robotics, advanced manufacturing, lifelong learning, his relationships with industrial employers, and we may even talk about a robot that paints athletic fields. Tune in next week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you like this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.